guys, welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be watching 18 most dangerous ninja weapons. So let's do it.
Along with the samurai, ninja are one of the most famous figures of ancient Japan. There are many myths and legends about them, but unfortunately, hardly any reliable sources. However, it is believed that they were formerly employed as scouts, spies, saboteurs, or assassins in Japan. There are also some clues that suggest the ninja were a purely Buddhist order in search of nirvana, the liberation from repeated suffering and rebirth. Their weapons are just as legendary as their history. Apparently, they were not afraid to use new inventions. Therefore, there is a whole range of strange weapons associated with them. The extent to which these devices were actually used is sometimes very controversial. Let's start with Tessen. The metal fan was popular because, of course, it wouldn't be recognized as a weapon at first glance. There were therefore many different versions of it. The simple ones only had outer parts made of metal, so that they could be used like a club when folded. The somewhat more sophisticated variant, on the other hand, was even able to cut. That's because the ends of the individual struts were sharpened, so you could easily surprise your opponents with them. Shuko. The Shuko consists of a ring made of leather with iron claws attached to it. It actually isn't just a weapon, but also an extremely useful tool for climbing. Wearing Shuko on their hands, ninja could easily climb trees, and even walls weren't a problem with the iron claws. But of course, the Shuko also came in handy for combat. This makes the famous tiger claw known from Chinese kung fu look like child's play. If used to scratch an opponent's face, the sharp blades inflicted terrible wounds. They could also be used to parry enemy swords, but that was extremely risky. Ashiko.
Very risky.
This is basically the counterpart to the Shuko. In principle and construction, these two tools are very similar. The only difference is that the Ashiko were not worn on the hands, but on the feet of the ninja. The devices also make climbing much easier. On top of that, they ensure that kicks are...
First, can we just... What are these shoes? Why are they split like that?
Extremely effective and can result in serious injuries. Chi-giri-ki. This was an extremely simple weapon. It was originally developed by farmers to defend themselves against attackers and worked similar to a flail used in agriculture. They simply attached a chain with an iron weight to a stick so that the weapon had a significantly higher impact than the usual flail with a wooden weight. A very similar weapon was also used in Europe during the Middle Ages. Tetsubishi. This is another weapon that existed in a similar form in medieval Europe, where it was known as a caltrop or crow's foot. In Japan, on the other hand, it was called a makabishi or tetsubishi. These sharp, spiked weapons were either made of iron or the dried seed pods of the water chestnut. Since they could penetrate the sandals of the soldiers at that time, they were mainly used to slow down enemy troops or stop them for a while if they were retreating. To do this, they were simply scattered on the floor. However, they were also used as throwing weapons. Ninjato. This is a straight short sword that is said to have been part of the standard equipment of the ninja. It was short enough to be carried on a ninja's back and be drawn from there. A longer sword like a katana would have restricted the ninja when he was climbing, and, if carried on his back, he wouldn't have been able to draw it due to the long blade. Rumor has it that the ninjato was often just a shortened katana. In order to save resources, the ninja sometimes took the swords of their victims and made ninjatos out of them. Fukia. This is a Japanese blowgun that was used to shoot poisoned darts. A typical ninja blowgun was only about 50 centimeters long. To make sure that the arrow hit its target, the weapon could only be used within a very short distance. Nowadays, the Fukia is still used for sports similar to archery. Kusari Fundo. The combination of a long chain, kusari, and a heavy weight, fundo, at the end results in a powerful weapon with which the ninja could defend themselves against.
Oh, yes, I am. The blow dart, it was on one of our Unspeakables videos. Nathan, that's how you call him. So, you might be able to find it, but it was a couple years ago when they were, like, shooting the blow darts. I think it was to destroy 100 layers of something, I'm pretty sure.
Against their enemies. The Kusari Fundo was helpful in areas where wearing a sword was prohibited. It could easily be hidden and was mainly used for self-defense. Kusarigama. To create this weapon, all the ninja had to do was to attach a Kusari Fundo to a sickle. This is how the Kusarigama was invented. The combination of throw, cut, and chain weapon makes the Kusari.
That just straight up looks like a scythe. Y'all know the myth of the Reaper? That looks like a scythe, but without that. Without this little handle right here, and this chain that looks like that with that. And it's a little bit longer, and the blade's a little bit longer.
Gama very versatile. To use it, the sickle was held in one hand while the other swung the weighted chain. This way, the ninja could keep opponents with swords at a distance so that they couldn't use their weapon. Then, the weighted chain could be used to disarm them. Baku Hatsu Gama. And there is even another form of this type of weapon. With the Baku Hatsu Gama, instead of the weight, other things are attached to the end of the chain. For example, small containers with shrapnel that opened upon impact, poisons, and even small containers with explosives were used. If the ninja didn't have enough money or wanted to be a bit more inconspicuous, the containers could also be filled with blinding powder. Teko Kagi. These were fearsome iron claws that could perform various tasks. They looked like a bear's paw and were probably
Tell me you're getting somewhere.
No,
We've already lost so much of the
were probably made from sickles or similar objects of utility. They could not only be deployed to attack opponents, but were also well suited to parry blows and disarm opponents. Shuriken. This term includes all short Japanese throwing weapons, and not just the well-known ninja stars. Actually, this weapon exists in surprisingly many shapes, from stars to swastika and from bolts to ordinary knives. The shuriken were carried in hidden pockets in the ninja's jackets or pants. Sometimes they were even smeared with poison so that in case the enemy survived the injury itself, he would still die of poisoning or infection. However, the weapon only had a range of a few meters to inflict real damage, which is why it was mainly used to stop pursuers by showering them with shuriken.
They can use it for
Matsubishi. This was a kind of powder that was used to blind opponents. It usually consisted of ash, pepper, dirt, and flour. In order to cause real damage, fine ground glass could be mixed into it as well. The powder was kept in hollow eggs, bamboo tubes, or other small containers.
By the
It
way,
was deployed to
it's
blind
currently 9 in the
attackers
morning.
and flee from them. Kakutei. This ring was usually worn on the middle finger so that the spikes were hidden in the hand. Especially female ninja, the kunochi, preferred this weapon. Sometimes the spikes were also dipped in poison. The weapon could be used to attack an enemy when he least suspected
what if
it,
when you
for
close
example,
your
by
hand,
suddenly
it goes-
scratching his face or slitting his throat.
It'll go-
The rings were also well suited
yeah.
as climbing aids.
If it's
Shiko
dipped in poison,
Mizue.
then you'll die.
The next weapon is a hidden
Everything like
sword.
that?
It looks like a walking stick and was mainly used during the Meiji era when carrying swords was prohibited. It was also worn by government officials
that.
and samurai who disagreed with the ban but did not want to be
It's supposed
punished.
to look like a walking stick.
Sai.
Okay, I see.
The sai looked
I've
like
seen
a fork or trident, but the
the
prong
other
in
one,
the middle.
it's supposed to look like a walking stick. The newer ones, it actually has a handle like the newer like the newer canes. You pull out the sword and it has a good handle.
was
that,
3
it's got
times
a
as long as the other two. They
have
were
to grip
mostly
around
used
it,
in
you can
pairs.
actually do it like
This way,
that.
they were great weapons for a lot of different techniques. In addition to parry,
See, instead of having to grip it like that, it would be about that long and then it would curve out so it would look like a cane.
stab, blow, and thrust techniques, disarmament techniques could be used as well.
And
This
then also, on here, this is like to jab your opponents. So, you can catch their sword, and these little these hoops right here, on both of them, and then either one, it can even be the one you have the sword in. You can go, you can jab them
way,
wherever.
the sword of the opponent could be intercepted and
sure it's
broken with a
sharp,
targeted
though.
blow under tension. A third sai was often worn on the body. It mainly functioned as a backup so the ninja could throw one sai at the enemy and still fight with 2 weapons.
Oh, wait, what?
Tonto. This is a typical Japanese combat sword. It had a slightly curved blade, is single-edged, and less than 30
yeah.
centimeters long. It was
That.
originally part of the equipment of the samurai and mainly used by them for self-defense. But the ninja seemed to have taken a fancy to it as well. After all, it was perfect for assassinations.
Sorry.
There were many different forms of Tonto. They were also used for ritual suicide, seppuku. Kagi Nawa. This grappling hook was attached to a 10-meter-long rope and used as a tool to climb walls or secure boats. It was used by all kinds of soldiers, the samurai, and the ninja. Even though it was intended as a tool, it could of course also be used as a weapon. Shikoro. This was a tool mainly used to open things. The small double-edged saw was also very light and easily concealable. Ninjas didn't have a clear distinction between tools and weapons. They could use the Shikoro to cut open a fence or make a hole inside a wooden wall to look through, and also to cut ropes. Of course, it could also be used to fend off attackers, which makes the Shikoro one of the most versatile gadgets, and a shinobi would usually carry 3 of these on any mission.
Those are kunais.
As you can see, most of these ninja weapons were small or made out of everyday objects like sickles and seed pods, or hidden in fans and canes. In contrast to this, samurai often used huge, menacing weapons like the tetsubo. This staff was made from iron and is one of the least famous weapons of the samurai. There are different sizes of these clubs, but their common feature are studs at one end. Some of them were shaped like a baseball bat and others were straight, but they all required a lot of strength and balance, because recovering from a miss was a difficult task due to the heavy weight of the
Comment down below
tetsubo.
if you wanted to hit with
Other
that.
huge weapons of the samurai were their great swords, nodachi, and their over 2.3-meter long bows, yumi. As you can see when having a look at this huge selection of weapons, the ninja were quite different
Alright guys, well that's pretty much it, because I'm not showing anything else. So that's going to wrap up this video. If you enjoyed, make sure to slap that like button. Remember to subscribe and turn on post notifications for when I post my other videos. That Game Approach right out.